we're just delighted to have everybody here. The one thing I'm going to do, according to my wife, is smile. I don't know how many of you have watched, what is it, The Muppets, where they have Statler and Waldorf, these two naysayers. And she says, Bill, whenever you talk with a group, you always get so serious, you tend not to smile. And people think there's something wrong. So try to smile. I'll try to do that. We've got a great set of topics today. Already we've heard so much, and right now we're going to talk about something that has just really, my wife can't hear, you can't hear? Needs to be a little louder. Okay, I will do this. Uh, but we've had a great set of topics already, and this one is super cool. Welcome aboard. The DFW Alliance for Religious Freedom started about 6 or 8, how long ago? 9 years ago. And a lot of people became interested in that. So working through the Center for Law and Religion here at BYU, we managed to put a little endowment together. We hired a couple of employees, and these alliances have now formed something called the Religious Freedom Alliance Council, and we are now operating in 32 metroplexes across the country. It's become a big deal, and it's exactly what we're talking about here. It's how can we help our societies flourish? How can we bring peace to our really very divisive society? And the people who are sitting next to me here are 4 folks who have been hugely successful in important blue states and red states. And we're really focusing, at least I'm thinking we ought to focus a lot more on the blue states where religious freedom has been less of an issue. And so we've got a couple of blue state people here, a couple of red state people here. I think Rob Kine is in Battleground State. Is that it, Rob? What we call?
I think we're trending red.
Trending red, okay. Fine, that's great. So I'd like to just quickly introduce our speakers then. On the far side is Rob Latimer from Seattle. They have an alliance up there. Rob Kime from Atlanta, Georgia. My dear friend Peter Harris, who's with us in Dallas, Texas. And then Allyson Egbert, who has had just an amazing experience trying to make all this work in Las Vegas, which has not been a super friend for religious freedom. We've all got different stories, and I'm not going to take much time to talk about my story other than to say my wife and I retired in 2016, and we were putting in mission papers with the church and got a revelation, a direct revelation, which was do your own mission paper, which we did. We wrote a mission that said we're going to get involved with religious freedom. And then the next thing we had to do was find out what is that? But we did have a retirement party. We gave our kids copies of the mission work, and we said we want you to hold us accountable for that. And so many of you in this room probably are in places where you're going to listen to what we're talking about with religious freedom. You're going to listen to what we're talking about here in this conference today, and you're going to think, I'd like to do something like that. And the bottom line is you can, and we will help you, and Heavenly Father will help you. And all of this stuff is just working exactly in the direction we want to go as a nation, as a religious group of people. And so that's it. That's the end of my story. With that, do you want to just start? Where should we start? Start down at the far end here with
slides go to be first.
Okay, Matt.
Well, good morning, everybody. I'm Matt Latimer. I helped organize the Religious Freedom Symposium that we did in Seattle for a couple of years. So Seattle is decidedly a blue area of the country. I'm a corporate attorney, actually. I don't really have any involvement in religious freedom except by avocation. And I'm a member of the J. Reuben Clark Law Society in Seattle. I also have a church calling where I'm the religious freedom specialist for the North America West area. So all of these things kind of circulated into this idea that maybe we should be doing some more things in religious freedom in Seattle. I teach part-time at the University of Washington Law School. So a few years ago, we went to the dean of the law school, which is not necessarily friendly to religious freedom types of discussions, and suggested that we might have some kind of a religious freedom seminar sponsored by the law school and the Law Society together. And surprisingly, the dean at the time, Kelly Tessie, said, you know, we have so many of our students who are relatively conservative in their orientation, and they're always complaining we never do anything for them. So we think this would be a great thing for you to do. So we organized our first. I don't know what's here. This isn't the deck, is it?
So what is the?
There's a different deck.
Which deck?
Anyway, I'll just keep talking and we can. So we organized our first symposium several years ago. It was actually pre-COVID. We drew upon the benefits of the International Center for Law and Religion here at BYU. We invited Elizabeth Clark to come visit with us. It was right about, this first one we did was in 2017. So it was right about the time where we had the first Muslim ban that came in, the first Trump administration. So there's an opportunity to bring in some diverse voices from the Muslim community to talk about those things. It was also a time where we had a few of our speakers came from the cake shop cases, and some of those advocates came as well. And so we were able to have a really broad-based discussion because of the environment. It included the students, it included the law professors at the university, included invited guests, and because of we didn't quite know how it would be received. We tried to really emphasize some of the things that this conference emphasized, which is, thank you, the benefits of religious faith and peacemaking and pluralism and balancing those kinds of things against one another. So show that religious freedom, whether or not you're personally religious or whether or not you're conservative or you're liberal, is a benefit to all. So that was really the focus of the conference. We brought in some groups to be sponsors of the conference that we thought would help not only draw more audience, but we'd also be able to show that there's a very diverse collection of law firms, religious groups, the university, of course, to show that it's a really inclusive environment. And so you're not going to be able to see this. These are some of our agendas for the few symposiums that we've held. We were grateful at the very first one of our symposia. For those of you who are Latter-day Saints, we have Elder Von Keach of the 70 came. He was at the time the head of the public affairs department for the church. So he came as our keynote speaker at our first one. We had about 150 folks show up. We didn't ask people's affiliations when they showed up, but just scanning the audience, I think probably about 35 to 40% of those folks were Latter-day Saints that came because they heard about the program. And the rest came from interfaith groups, law students, academics, and we offered continuing legal education credits for attorneys at a relatively cheap cost. So that was really key to getting some of our attorneys there. So you could see some pictures of what we did. Steve Collis came and helped us 1 year, and we're planning another one for this fall. So one of the things we did just as an adjunct to this half-day seminar was actually have an interfaith breakfast. So we worked with our friends in the church communication department to assemble a number of interfaith leaders around the Puget Sound area. So prior to the conference, we actually had a breakfast where Elder Keach and several other religious leaders essentially spoke to one another and talked about religious freedom principles. It technically wasn't part of our program, but it ended up being something that was a nice adjunct to the program. And then we moved into the more academic side of the program where we had panelists that talked about recent Supreme Court cases and some of the trending topics at the time. So our hope is to recreate that again this year. We had a COVID disruption. So we had a few years where we really didn't do much, but we're back at the University of Washington School of Law this year. And I would just say, and we're going to get into talking about topics, right, or some of the subjects, but I would just say I came at this, I'm an attorney, but I didn't come at this with some kind of long history of Supreme Court arguments on religious freedom in front of this. So I think that anybody who has a desire to do this kind of thing, there's just some basic things that we'll talk about today that hopefully will help you formulate how to get it done. And there's tons of resources that will hopefully familiarize yourself so that you can put on a program in your community.
I assume if you're here, either you wanted to make sure the room was crowded so we didn't feel bad if it was empty, or you did come with a question of what can you do. And that's where I was about 6 years ago. My husband and I, we joined the supportive arm of the Center for Law and Religious Studies in 2019 and had an experience ourselves, a revelatory experience ourselves. I do not come from an attorney background. I was poli-sci. I'm a mother of 6, and I've judged many children in sandboxes. And that's my experience, but I have a great passion, and the nudge wouldn't go away. Las Vegas, the city of lights, it's a swing, come from a swing state, but it wasn't done on a political background. It was just, I loved what Brett said. We do religious freedom because love matters. We have the wonderful experience in our area to work with many interfaith people. They are gems, and I am enriched, and I have holy envy for every single one of their traditions, and I'm a better person, and I want to learn from them. And hopefully they can learn something from me. So it really comes out of the basis of love for me. So about 6 years ago, we started thinking about, could this happen in Las Vegas? We spoke to many people, and actually, to be honest, it was a little bit discouraging. And that is because we've come across what I think has been the biggest obstacle is the definition for some of religious freedom. There's a misunderstanding. Up until 1993, people agreed what religious freedom was about. Unanimously, the Restoration Act was passed. But since then, a few things happened. 9/11 happened. There was a sexual revolution where abortion and different things that would couch religious freedom topic as a together with a political stance instead of for everyone. And so that has been the obstacle in Las Vegas. But with some like-minded people, I think we're making some ground. So the first year, we had a symposium at UNLV. It was called Dignity and Diversity. It was for us, and you'll notice that every single one of these symposiums are a little different. Ours was a 4.5 to 5 hour afternoon. We had some breaks. We had a wonderful steak dinner. If you put steak dinner at the end, that makes people stay. That was the first. And then I'm going to jump to the second. So the first year it worked. So we went few. I purposely never said we're going to do this annually. Maybe that was defensive. I wanted to see what happened in our state. It was overwhelmingly a positive response. People came from everywhere and said, why aren't we talking about this more? Let's do this again. So we had the guts and the determination to do it again. So this happened last year at UNLV Law School. They called us up and said, can we co-sponsor with you? You proved yourself. This is something important to be done. It took us a while to figure out what we're going to do. I didn't want to go into the weeds of everything, but we made the program very simple. We had 3 panels. Once again, it was 4.5 to 5 hours long. We thought it was important for our area to do something with the rising generation. We gave them a whole 45-minute space, and it was very instructive. Something unique to Las Vegas is we do a service project, because I believe that if you can't come across a common common understanding of politics, you can come across common love and concern for humanity. For some people, members of the faith, maybe they do service projects all the time, so that's not a big deal. But for many, that was the only service project they'd done all year. And it was magical. All kinds of people from different faiths getting together, making kits for the homeless on behalf of Catholic Charities. Took us a while to come up with a theme. You would think of finding common ground, that's not a big deal. I appreciated Elder Nash, who said, actually, it's forging common ground. Micah Fries, I've heard him say, the point of us to come together is to not agree. It's just to be able to be unified and working together. And we have found that to be the case. So we came up with a theme of finding common ground. We divided it into a keynote speaker and then followed by a discussion in international problems, local problems, and then we had the MFNN who followed up. It was fabulous. We exhaled. It worked. We had more people say, can we do it again? Prepare yourself, though. It doesn't necessarily get easier. There's always going to be obstacles, and that makes you excited because that means it's right. So we didn't do it in spring. We're going to do it in fall. We have UNLV ready to help us again this year. But like I said, the greatest things that we've done was the connections. Those connections we never saw coming. Never saw coming. And our service. That was the language that bonded us together. This is just our team. Of course, you always bring your spouse in. There's my husband, and he's converted and has been my right wing on this, and just about 3 other women. And this is what I do. We don't need a big committee, but we just need a lot of vision. So that's our City of Lights.
Dallas-Fort Worth. So happy to talk for a few minutes about the DFW Alliance for Religious Freedom and Human Dignity. And unlike most of the folks on the panel, I get to rest on the laurels of work that others have done for several years. So Bill and Mark Romney in the back set up our alliance with some others in 2018. And I think we're among the more formal of the groups here in terms of our structure. We have an independent corporation, nonprofit corporation that sought for and obtained 501c3 status so that we could obtain donations. And one of the fun things about seeing this development over the last few years is just seeing the different ways that people are approaching it. And you've seen one. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit about what we do in Dallas, because it's kind of fun. And I'm going to do that by just explaining what we did last year. So we had our 7th annual summit. We do them in the fall. We held it at the Dallas Holocaust and Human Rights Museum. Close to 150 people attended, and they were from many different faiths, both our panelists and our attendees. As we went back and looked at it, there was no single denomination that had a majority of the people there. It's all from different groups, different interfaith groups, and really rewarding in terms of the relationships that are developed there. Our core purpose is to try to bring people together of divergent views to have a discussion about significant issues related to religious freedom and what impact that has on us. So we talk a little bit about what happened in Texas. Our first session was really Texas focused. We had an African-American couple who had acquired a historically black church that was once attended by both the slaves and the slave owners. They ran into some zoning issues from their town council, believe it or not. Some pro bono legal support helped them overcome those zoning issues, and we talked about that story that was local to the Metroplex. One of our local state representatives happens to be the first Muslim who was elected to the Texas state legislature. And he came in and talked about some legislation that he had sponsored that was passed, and read a nice resolution about the alliance. Our next session was a couple of incredibly articulate and passionate high school students. We brought them in from the World Affairs Council, and they both had familial reasons to be really passionate about religious freedom. And they talked about those. That was moderated by Brett Scharf, who many of you know. Really rewarding to see high school students take the stage on that. Then we had our serious legal session for the lawyers who want to talk in Supreme Court language that only lawyers really love and the rest of us tolerate. Although I did go to law school a long time ago. But we had really outstanding discussion about the Supreme Court precedents and the impact that it was having sort of on the landscape for religious freedom. Our next session was presented by 3 law students from the Clinic of Law and Religion, I believe it's called, at the University of Texas at Austin. They each presented a specific theme that they were researching and studying as part of the Law and Religion Clinic at UT Austin. And to me, this was some of the more impactful substance that I heard during the whole conference. I still remember what each of the 3 of them talked about. It was really impressive. And again, moderated expertly by some of the folks from ICLRS. We then had a panel with 2 speakers. One was a preeminent Muslim imam with national prominence who happens to live in the Metroplex in Dallas. And the other was the senior rabbi for the largest Jewish congregation in the Metroplex. They talked about anti-Semitism and Islamophobia. And there were some challenging moments just in terms of getting through subject matter. They didn't really focus on what's happening in Israel right now, but tangentially it's still there. We were fortunate to have an expert moderator in this case, Bob Roberts, who's a Baptist and who is very skilled at handling sensitive issues. And it was, at the end of the session, the 2 of them shook hands, and we learned a lot. Then we had a little light supper for a bit at the museum, and then we had a panel on peacemakers, which was a little bit of a precursor, I'm going to say, to this conference today. And a couple of our speakers in this picture are actually here today, speaking on different panels, different times. Steve Collis moderated that panel, and he's written a book about civil discourse and being peacemaker, and just some interesting perspectives presented from different religions and different backgrounds and different philosophies there. Our last session was talking about the role of the Black church in preserving civil rights, including freedom of religion, through the civil rights movement. We brought in some African-American preachers from Dallas who talked to us about the history of the civil rights movement and the role of the Black church in preserving many different types of freedoms. And of course, this was the last session, and to finish it off, since we had the Black church as a discussion item, we brought in a gospel singer to sing an a cappella spiritual that knocked our socks off. And she at the end of the discussion about religious freedom, she took us to church. That's how I say it. This then is just an organizational slide at the end. We have 4 formal board members whose names you'll probably recognize. We then, most importantly, have a 14-person advisory board. They are made up of interfaith leaders from across the Metroplex. The only one who doesn't fit that, I think, is Hannah Smith, who's from here. But the rest of them are interfaith leaders from different religions who've all committed to support religious freedom, and they support our organization, and they help us think about subject matters and speakers and issues that are of interest in Dallas. And we have a lot of legislation that's happening right now in our state involving, governor signed something that you've got to put up a poster of the 10 Commandments in every classroom, and chaplains are permitted hires for public schools. And we have a new school voucher program that allows people to use vouchers to go to religious-based school. So there are a lot of issues that are associated with it, and it's really nice to have the backing of local religious leaders with very different viewpoints, I will add, from any other's viewpoints. And it makes for a pluralistic discussion even about, what should we talk about? What are the subjects that we should address? So that's what we're doing in Dallas. It's a lot of fun.
All right. Well, my name is Rob Kime. I'm from Atlanta, Georgia. And I think our group is probably evidence that if some of you are interested in doing this but feel a little nervous about your capacity to put something together, I can tell you that if we can do it, anybody can do it, okay? No lawyers involved, no legal background. We're just kind of fumbling around in the dark. And after we'd done this for a couple of years, Bill and Hannah got a hold of us, and that was really transformational, I can say, with their guidance and support, connecting us with different groups. It really did transform what we were able to put together. So we're certainly grateful for that support. We call this the Freedom of Religion Roundtable, and it's a gathering of local clergy, elected officials, and of course just interested citizens. We try to recruit all types of thought leaders, school boards, city councils, mayors, And for us, partly, yeah, well, I guess I'll just leave that at that. This is just a look at our program for this year. We tried to create a very multi-faith discussion. Daniel Dorsch, the head of the Atlanta Rabbinical Society, and we have somebody there from the Catholic Archdiocese. We have somebody there from a couple of big multi-faith organizations. Misha Maynard was a state representative, and she was kind of a lightning rod because she switched political affiliations. Kamal Karucha is a prominent Muslim, so we try to have this very diverse multi-faith panel. We had about 175 attendees. We had been doing this at an LDS chapel. We moved it to the campus of the largest public university in Georgia, Kennesaw State University, because it's a heavily evangelical, it's kind of dominated by evangelical faith. And some of them have a little concern about coming to one of our buildings. So the campus is a little bit more of a neutral environment. And we were very pleased to have some prominent evangelicals that participated as well. We did have Micah Fries from the Multi-Faith Neighbors Network. He did the keynote speech, and it was just a beautiful, beautiful kind of exploration of the idea that we may disagree, we should disagree, that if we're really truly friends, we bring our disagreement to that friendship, right? It's not really friendship if we have to kind of walk on eggshells, we have to self-censor, but that what we are, our most authentic relationship is a relationship where we really can bring our disagreement and then support each other in our right to think and believe differently. So he did an amazing job. And then, of course, you can see Hannah over there. She moderates the panel discussion and just does an amazing job of creating a spirit of unity and friendship and love. She really gets the best out of the panelists. And, we've had, this is the 4th year that we've done this, and the last couple of years that we've had Hannah moderating this, we've had so many people come to us after and throughout the year who have just remarked on what a beautiful spirit there was. And for a lot of them, it was really something unique that they hadn't kind of experienced. So she does an amazing job. So we'll just say a couple of things that we've learned for people who are interested in doing this. Number one is definitely seek divine guidance. We seek that, and we have definitely felt that. Number two is just to take action. It doesn't matter if this is a mess. It doesn't matter if it doesn't work out very well. Just do something. Don't let perfection be the enemy of progress. Ask for help. Just ask anybody to do anything. And a lot of them are going to say, no, not going to do that. I don't want to be involved. But we have just been absolutely floored by some of the people who at their own expense and great personal sacrifice have been willing to help us and teach us. We've learned from all these people. And that's been a huge blessing and really colored how this works out. The other thing is repetition. You just have to do this over and over again so that it gets known in the community. We learn every year that we do this, and we just see that it's growing every year. The first time we did this, we had about 35 people, and it just keeps getting bigger every year. And so we've really learned that repetition is an important key. So,
Thank you very much. Can we have a little hand of applause here for these wonderful, wonderful pioneers? I'll call you pioneers. Let me just make one or two more comments, and then we'll turn it over for a Q&A. The comments I'd like to make are that our Supreme Court in the last 5 or 10 years has actually changed religious freedom law in the United States of America in a wonderful and positive way. I don't know if we have copies of this brochure for everybody? Okay. So if you'll just take a look at what's going on here, we used to have 5 brochures on religious freedom in America that we handed out at all these summit meetings. And they were published about 5 or 10 years ago. And I made a pretty big deal of it with the church that we just threw them all away. We threw away thousands of these brochures because the laws had changed so dramatically in our favor. This brochure, this brief brochure which you all have, explains what are the laws in the United States today. You can pray in school. You can have a nativity on the front lawn of your local community. You can get religious accommodation in the workplace. All these things are totally legal, and it's not happening across the nation culturally. So our organization, the Religious Freedom Alliance Council, is focused on how do we help people understand what is the law and how do we change the culture amongst the people on a grassroots basis in the communities in which we live. That's what it's all about. You can look across the world. My wife and I have spent about 30 or 40 years, for example, involved in India. You can look across the world at constitutions and bills of rights which allow for religious freedom in countries that are completely opposed to anything that looks like religious freedom. And that's most of the countries in the world, probably, where there's great antipathy toward religious freedom. We're defending the home base, the United States of America. We're defending our Constitution as a benchmark for the world. We're defending our Bill of Rights as something that every country in the world basically signed up for when you look at the UN Declaration of Human Rights. All these countries signed up for that. They're not supporting it. So we're defending the home base, and we can help you do this in whatever community you're in. I think I mentioned we're now in 32 states, so that's coming along. These are not chapters. It's whatever you want it to be in your local state. We can help you with social media, with websites, with speakers, with topics. That's all available to you. Just let us know and we can get on board. Do it your way, whatever works for you best. So with that, we'll turn it over to questions. We've got 15, 20 minutes left over. Yes, Martin.
Is there a place that lists the different cities that are doing this or that are working on trying to do it so that people would know if they're nearby that?
We have a very poor website right now. I think the title of the website is RFAC.org, Religious Freedom Alliance Council.org, which lists most of these states. But this has grown so rapidly, just in the last month, there are about 5 or 6 more metroplexes that have decided they want to go this route. So no, not everything is listed there. Pardon me? RFAC Council is the website. Pardon me?
I was gonna say, Sandy, maybe no. I think it's on the centers too, somewhere. I've seen it.
On the center's website, the ICLRS.org website.
It may be hard to find, but I remember, oh, there it is. So, and this is all new. It's like the website's not catching up with the work. So, yeah.
We just hired Sumner Blackhurst, who's in the back, to help us with all the website work. So thank you, Summer. Summer, I think I said.
So hopefully, as a part of this website, you guys will be able to contact and we'll be able to kind of share resources. That's kind of one of the main things that we'll be able to put on social media.
If somebody wants to pass this mic around, that would be fine. Also, I'd like to point out that, like the church, this is a work in process. The restoration is still underway, and so is the establishment of the Religious Freedom Alliance.
So when it comes to kind of brass tacks, I'd like to talk about funding and sponsorships. And I wanted to know how, in the various cities what approach you have taken, and so we can get a feel for what's been working in your city and some ideas for us.
So I'll start. Is that all right? So in Seattle, we did sponsorships. And we did that for 2 reasons. One is we needed some money. Second, we actually felt like having sponsors lend credibility to the event. So we had sponsors from both religious interfaith groups, which we charge very small amounts just so we could get their brand on it, and we had law firms sponsor us. We also charged modest fee for the lawyer CLE, but everybody else that came, we had them come free. So, and really for us, the expenses were, we had the law school sponsoring, so we had the facilities. The expenses for us, frankly, were like the drinks and the cookies and the interfaith breakfast. That was really it. So, and some travel for the speakers. So yeah, we went the sponsorship route, and we felt it was as important to have credible sponsors, especially for your first one, as the money, it was as important to have that than just the money that they brought.
I think we're again evidence that you can do this on a real shoestring. We come to this from maybe a little different angle. I'm a stake president in Atlanta, and our objective in doing this is to have a premise to engage with all these different multi-faith groups and legislators and elected officials. And so this was really our communications budget. And there are kind of strict guidelines about what we can and can't do, and we have a limited budget. And so, you know, for example, our space at the university was hosted by the Latter-day Saints Student Association. That's how we got around that fee. We've just been very fortunate to have local speakers. We have a great diversity of speakers that are available. And so I would just say you can do it on a shoestring budget and, you know, punching cookies and things like that. So.
As opposed to here, ours is not done by faith. The Church of Jesus Christ Latter-day Saints does not sponsor ours. Ours was done by an alliance, and that's how we find that that's best. It is secular, and we've just found a couple of very nice people that somehow believed in us.
Yeah, same for us. We did set up a 501c3 so we can accept donations, and we routinely receive small amounts from various organizations that help us out. A couple of nice people who have helped us out, and the expenses are not too exorbitant.
One thing I would just mention is in Dallas, our largest financial sponsor has been Muslim Aid. And the Muslims have just been humongously supportive of what we're doing. Likewise, we've got a big support group from the Evangelical Baptists in the Metroplex, in Dallas Metroplex. So it's not, we have never gotten, I don't think we've ever gotten any donation from the church in Dallas, Texas.
Nope.
So
other than time of a few people.
and we've also been pretty careful how to do this, where we have not paid often for speakers to travel to Dallas. Most of the time they've been on their own penny, and we've I think it's correct to say we've never paid an honorarium. So, you know, there are a lot of people who are willing to jump in on this on their own dime and do what they need to do. And the support we've got now from the center has been huge, and that's providing, as I said, a lot of support on social media and advertising and websites and that sort of thing, which is, and everything we've done there is replicable. It's all designed with the idea in mind that you can use it anywhere in the United States of America. It's going to work for you. We've got a website waiting for you.
If I could just comment, I'm Bruce Duffield from Chicago, and as I've listened to this, and it's all really wonderful, but our experience shows you that there are different ways to accomplish this. We've done it 3 years now, a nice interfaith symposium. The first year was with Steve Collis, and it was focused on freedom of religion. We have kind of evolved from focus on the legal aspects to more on the interfaith aspects, and we're doing it under the umbrella of our area communications. So we are actually using the church communication budget, and the beautiful thing, and Allyson, you talked about the real great fruit of this is the relationships, and I want to say amen to that. And Bill, you characterized blue and red states. I'm in a absolutely blue state, but in the religious world, everybody is concerned about faith. All of the people involved in our interfaith organizations feel the encroachment of the secular world. And so we are brothers and sisters without regard to the political background. And so for this year, September 10th, and you're all invited, our focus is not really on religious freedom. Our theme is sacred spaces for challenging times. And we've reached out to our community, and we've got our Buddhist friends talking about their temples, our Muslims talking about their mosques, our black churches talking about the support for job training and housing and food support. We've got our Sikhs talking about their Gurdwara, the Jews, their synagogues. We've got 10 people talking about how their places of worship bring peace, inspiration, strength. And we're just so excited to learn from everybody without really focusing on the religious freedom aspect of it. And I recognize we're here at the Religious Freedom Annual Review, but you can do this just reaching out to other faith groups. And I promise you, every single faith group in the world is feeling the same concerns. How do we convey our faith to the next generation? How do we make our values heard in the public square? How do we encroach against all these secular values that are so demeaning to religion? And you find instant friends there. And just the one key for us, show up. If you go to somebody's event, some other faith, they love you for it. And then they come to your event, and it becomes geometric. And the more events you go to, the more of those people come to your event, and you love one another, and it's just great. So I have such a testimony of this, and there are so many different ways to do it. The hand of the Lord is in it. You'll find miracles, and it's just a joy to be a part of this.
Just on that interfaith aspect, I was going to add to that. You will find, as you start this, many other wonderful, wonderful people from all aspects, including atheists or whatever, that are being nudged to do this. It's really great. In our own personal home, last Saturday, we had a crowd of Muslims who are in essence refugees from their country. And we have developed this wonderful relationship with them in the past 2 years. And as we have talked about to each other, they kept calling us family. They had a different way of expressing those terms of the Spirit or however, but they were feeling it. And they said, please, let's continue. Please, let's continue. There are many, many faiths being nudged to do this.
I'll also add just a little different perspective on it. We do in Dallas, we have a really robust interfaith set of activities, both with our faith as well as many other faiths. And we've taken the approach that our niche for this independent organization is to focus on religious freedom. Not to suggest that the other pieces can't and shouldn't happen, and they all know that I do a lot of interfaith work, and I'm working with this group that focuses on religious freedom. So there are different ways to cut that. I agree with you. Everybody, figure out what works in your environment. For us, we wanted to become the expert on this particular niche of interfaith activity that reinforces a whole host of other interfaith activities that are happening across our metroplex.
I have a question. When you put up the slide that I believe it was for the Dallas area where it had your council members or your board members, I noticed that you had representation from the LGBTQ plus community, the Shannon Minter. I know that from my interfaith work that between all the faiths, there are a lot of different views when it comes to that. How have you navigated that when bringing so many different beliefs and viewpoints together so that everyone feels that it's safe and that they have a voice and yet they can still be authentic?
Everyone needs Shannon Minter. He is here speaking later today. So we have many interfaith groups who have very divergent views on those particular issues. And again, with some of our interfaith groups, it becomes a really serious back and forth and discussion, hopefully in a very civil way that's productive. For the religious freedom, there are even different ways to view religious freedom. But again, for this particular group, this niche we're focused on, there are legal arguments both directions. And our goal is to present both and understand it. We're not here to preach the gospel according to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. We're here to provide an opportunity for people to have civil discourse about things they might not agree about. And our interfaith colleagues know that about us. They know that we may or may not agree with everything that's said, but we're willing to let them be said.
I'll just add to that. I think this is a really important point. The second year we did this, we had Ryan Tucker come from the Alliance Defending Freedom, and he'd, been at the Supreme Court with, the Masterpiece Cake Shop. And we did have some people that we'd invited who afterwards expressed a feeling that, hey, this had tilted a little too far in one direction. And so now we kind of feel like, hey, if we've got some people on either side of this that afterwards feel like maybe this was, not quite what I was looking for, we feel like we're going in the right direction. But we've made it a point to ensure that on the panel, there are people who are very progressive, that are going to express that viewpoint. And in Georgia, the Religious Freedom Restoration Act has been a hot topic the last couple of years. And we had people who expressed opinions on both sides of the Religious Freedom Restoration Act. And it's, when you put that panel together, I think it's very important to have that combination. I know our area authority, Andrew Galt, he published an article with Jeff Graham of Georgia Equality, where they talked about, and that was signed by something like 70 different faith leaders who agreed that, we have very different perspectives on this, but we all need to support each other's right to speak.
We have a few minutes left, but I think that's a great question. We've always involved every religion, including Wiccans who wanted to come and atheists who wanted to come. That's great. The actual name, and you can name your thing anything you'd like. We call our organization the DFW Alliance for Religious Freedom and Human Dignity. That's the name of the organization. Religious freedom can get a bad rap. A lot of people think it's an excuse for being, anti-gay or whatever. And so we've tried to avoid that. We never really talk about politics. We never talk about religious dogma. That's just not what we do. And I would suggest that that's not where you focus either, but it's on respect for one another. It's the topic of this whole meeting we're having here right now. Religion, peace, and human flourishing. That's what we're trying to do. And we can do it. It's happening. So. And by the way, Tyler Deaton is also here speaking. He represents an LGBT organization in the United States. He's spoken for us. And Shannon Minter is just a huge support for our organization, who's the legal authority for the LGBT community in America. Mark, yes.
I think one of the things you have to be prepared for is some pushback on various issues. Almost every year we've had something come up at the last minute that tries to derail it or throw a monkey wrench into the work, and it requires a lot of patience. That's why Bill is so great, because he's a lot more patient than I am. And we have to deal with issues that come at you. We've had the issue presented to us that we were not being inclusive enough. But when we showed people what our program was and who our speakers were, that issue went away. We've had issues about using specific locations. That issue is sometimes unresolvable. So you have to be very flexible and just rely on the Lord to help you, because He will. This is His work, and we're doing the right thing no matter what faith we are. And as far as the LGBT stuff, it has been amazing to have that voice heard at our organizations. It's just been wonderful. That is the dividing line. That is principally the dividing line in the United States on religious freedom issues. Frankly, it goes almost right down to that one issue as the major division. And like Bill mentioned, we're not trying to convert anybody, but we have to have a place where everybody can talk their side and be respectful of the other people's opinions.
I just want to make a comment. So my area is Kansas. Is that better? Topeka, Kansas. For those you don't know, that's the home of the Westboro Baptist Church. So this issue is on fire in our community. And what we did when we put our event together is I met with the state and city pride presidents and talked to them about what we were doing and why, and made them part of putting together the program. So I would encourage you strongly, if you're worried about that and if that's an issue in your community, don't back off. Go in a respectful way and engage the gay and community in putting the event together and making it a balanced presentation. you don't have to be afraid to do that, to engage with them. And you're going to maybe be surprised at the reception you get when you come with, look, this is not about promoting that religious people get to do whatever they want, that it's about supporting everybody's freedom. So I just want to offer that encouragement. Go talk to them, and you might be surprised.
I think we're about out of time, but I'd like to thank everybody. We'd like to thank everybody for coming. This is a wonderful, wonderful work we're involved in, and there's room for everybody. Everybody in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and everybody involved in any way in religion. So thank you very much. See you later.